Good Thursday morning. These are tough. Again, it's Isaiah and also Matthew, okay? I'll read you Isaiah, then I'll give you Matthew. He says, on the day they will sing this song in the land of Judah, a strong city have we. He sets up walls and ramparts to protect us. Open up the gates to let in a nation that is just, one that keeps faith. A nation of firm purpose you keep in peace for its trust in you. Trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord is an eternal rock. He humbles those in high places, and the lofty city he brings down. He tumbles it to the ground, levels it with dust. It is trampled underfoot by the needy, by the footsteps of the poor. I think of the Second World War. You think what Germany looked like at the end of the war. They became unfaithful. They worshipped the wrong God. They worshipped Hitler. For a Christian nation, that's one of the great mysteries for me, how they could have bought into that. It scares me, because if they could do it, I can do it. Make the same horrible mistake. I don't condemn the Germans, but I don't condemn them at all. I fear that it could be me. I was in Germany at one time, and I thought, oh, what a beautiful place. I love Germany. If I could pick a place in Europe to live, I'd pick Germany. But I thought, God, if they could produce a Hitler, nothing is beyond possibility. Then I could too. It was humbling for me, not judgment, humbling. The capacity for such depravity, to be seduced into such depravity. Yeah. In the gospel, he says, then this is it. This is the difference between real faith and merely cultural faith. He says, Jesus said to his disciples, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. Yeah. Everyone who listens to these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on rock. The rains fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and buffeted the house, but it didn't collapse, built on rock. Everyone who listens to these words of mine but does not act on them, does not bring them in, will be like a fool who built his house on sand. The rains fell, the floods came, the winds blew, buffeted the house, and it collapsed. Was completely ruined. Boy, if that doesn't, to me, describe Europe. I mean that. The gradual betrayal of the gospel as it chased after foolish ideologies starting in the 17th century, 16th century, gave rise to horror, a century of horror, to quote one of the popes, a century of horror. They betrayed the gospel, the very foundations of the European culture. They betrayed it. That's the truth. That is the truth. It's not those who have superficial faith, it's the externalities as those who are committed to the faith. And you have to be deeply committed to it, especially as the secularizing world gets stronger and stronger. I mean that too. I see that in my classes, that it's almost nothing left of what I would call this kind of Lord stuff, what I would call cultural Christianity. And it's because the world is so, the world these young kids are growing up in is hostilely Christian. That's hostile toward Christianity. It's radically secular in its affect in the world. It is difficult to be a Christian today. You have to affirm it. You have to accept it and grasp it and be willing to not only internalize but act on it. And I see it in the students. You don't see mere Christianity. You see either faith or agnosticism or atheism. And this is 19-year-olds. And you have to see it when there is when it surfaces itself. Because when the kids are Christian, they are absolutely Christian. They're not claiming this is the way they were raised, because they're saying this is what I believe. And the same with the atheists. They may say they were born a Christian, but they affirm their atheism. This is really an interesting time. We live in a phenomenally interesting time. There isn't. Cultural Christianity is that is a doornail right now, as far as I can tell. It barely has the trappings. No wonder our churches are so empty. It doesn't strike me as anything, because before they were full, but they were full of cultural Christians. In the last 50 or 60 years, that was tested brutally. It was tested earlier in wars and all the rest, but I think it was tested more by the attrition of the pieties in the last 50 years or so. As the culture began to radically secularize in the use of its symbols, its abandonment of certain Christian symbols, etc., and our education became more aggressively agnostic at best, okay? The culture changed. When it was fashionably Christian, to be Christian, that was a friend of mine said it that 60 years ago. He said to me, he was English and he was an atheist. He said it's fashionable to be Catholic or Christian. That's because of Kennedy, okay? It ain't fashionable no more. Now it's actually fashionable to be agnostic or atheistic. It's a sign that you're smart. Smart people. I don't know if they're smart or not, but it's interesting. You don't see that business here, Lord, Lord, on a superficial level. Now when they say Lord, Lord, they have to mean it because of people around them. At best, they're laughing at them. At worst, they're exorcising or cutting them out, excising them. I don't say the word right. I see that. I see that. More now than I ever did before. I mean, I don't know why, because I've been teaching philosophy of religion for 30 years, but this is the first time I've seen people really, really witness the faith and articulate it in context of conflict, where they've had to affirm or deny it. There's one young woman, God, she's eloquent, who struggled through so much in her young life, and she affirms the faith, and when she affirms it, believe me, it's not pious. It's life-saving, literally. It was a great exchange. I have a class, this is the same class. These kids are marvelous. God, and I have my favorite atheist in the class. He is marvelous. I love this kid. I miss him. He missed the class the other day. I miss him because he's going to challenge everything I'm saying. But it isn't me answering him. No, he's baiting me. He wants me to. He's enjoying it. He is so smart and such a good guy. I love him to death. But the young woman in class has been to hell and back. And when she affirms the faith, it's not argumentative. It's witnessing. When she witnesses to it, believe me, she's a showstopper. That's a show-stopping. Because you have to bend the knee to that. What you bend the knee to is the power of her conviction. And it's not pious. It's salvific. It's redemptive. She has tasted the emptiness of life at a very young age. And she grasps for life in God through Christ. You have to see it when it's real. These are kids. These are kids. But they have seen it all and tasted it all. And you see so much of it now. So much. I think because not in her case, but in so many cases, they come from fragmented and fractured families. Maybe second, third generation of families that have abandoned the faith. Maybe their grandparents were Christian or Catholic or something. They're not. It's so watered down, but their life experience is so raw. They don't have the corresponding Lord, Lord. There ain't no cultural support. They are thrown to the lions. That's the truth. They're thrown to the psychological, spiritual, and moral lions. That's the truth. These kids have tasted a lot at a very young age, and they are choosing to believe, not out of piety at all, but out of the need for salvation, the need for redemption from life itself, to be redeemed so they can have meaning in their lives. That's the truth. They are grasping religion at its core. Not in its piety, its very core, its source of hope, that life has meaning. It is not vacuously empty. This is the truth. That's why you see how poignant these times are. But those kids give me hope. But I said to this young woman, you're going to make an impact on life. You are going to make a difference. I could tell because she has been to hell. She has a prophetic voice in the sense that she proclaims God out of the pathos of her experience. That's neat. It's hopeful. It's real.